Hi, this is a video about adding beads to a project if you're loom knitting. So go ahead and get yourself some beads. These are pony beads. I got them from my local Walmart, but you can get them, sometimes you can get them at the dollar store. So go ahead and get those and open them on up. And as you'll see, if I can hold one up for you here, they have a pretty big opening, which makes it easy to thread the yarn through. The second thing you're going to need is a little plastic needle. This actually should, I believe, come with your loom, one of your loom kits anyway. And again, that's because it has the big enough opening to put yarn through. Then obviously you need yarn. Now the reason what spurred this video is a product I'm working on right now, which is a bag. This is the flap of the bag, and I'm just starting to make the actual opening to the bag here. And as you can see, I've added 1, 2, and there's actually a third row of beads that you can't see that are going to be working themselves down. So I had some people on Facebook ask me, how I did this. It's a very simple procedure, I guess, if you want to call it, and it doesn't take hardly any time at all. Now what I'm going to do is I'll use the other side of the yarn. So you would take your yarn, you would take your needle. Let's see if this will cooperate. And the reason I like using the needle, other than trying to do this by hand, is, and it goes in pretty easily. Then all you're going to do is simply stack the beads on. And what's good about this technique of using this needle is if you did want a certain pattern, then it's easier to see your pattern and then just let the beads, well, it should fit around the needle pretty well. Let them just drop down. And that's all you're going to do. So add as many beads as you think you're going to need for the project. And I did have somebody ask me, well, how many beads do you use for the project? And I tend to just throw a bunch on and see where I am. As you can see, this is the yellow loom. And as I said, I've got a row of beads here, a row of beads here, and a row of beads here. But I still have, I can show you, plenty of beads still on here to work with, because I have a couple more ideas. But if you're somebody that needs a number, your best bet would be to figure out what pattern you're going to do. Are you just going to do a line? Are they going to go all the way around? Because the simple way to find out how many you need is you're basically going to be positioning a bead in between the pegs that you want to have the bead in. So if you're just going to want the front of a bag, then just count these spaces and put that many beads on times how many times you think you're going to want to do the project. I just tend to wing it because for most of my designs and patterns, I don't follow a pattern. I just go with the flow when I'm knitting. And the other thing about this bag, because I did have somebody ask me, was what kind of stitch I was using. So let me go a little closer and see if you can see. There's actually 2 different types of stitch. Down here, I did an alternating of doing a knit row, then a purl row, then a knit row, then a purl row. I did that for probably about 6 rows, I believe. And then I started getting ready to do what I call the 1/2 stitch, which means I'm going to go around enough so that there's 3 strands of yarn and then pull the bottom yarn over the top yarn. That's what helps create this tighter stitch and actually creates those grooves. The back of it's kind of cool too. So I like how it kind of does this as well. If you wanted to reverse the bag and not have the ridges, you could use this side. But that's all I'm doing for the stitch. So when I get ready to put beads on, excuse me, all I end up doing, which is going to be a little tricky to do because I've got a bunch of yarn free, so let me fix that up. Okay. Now, like I said, I try to do everything on the loom as much as I can. As you can see with the bag, this is the flap, so if you turn it this way, it's going to eventually just flap over. And I'm actually going to end up casting this off on this as well, which all I do for that is I take these outer pegs and move them to these pegs, and then knit over. And then I take these pegs, one side of the pegs basically, and move them to the other side, over and over, and then knit, and then do a crochet off where you pick up a loop, and then before you put the other loop on that's next to it, you wrap some string around. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right. Your best bet for stuff like that is to look up Mikey's Mail on Facebook, or YouTube, sorry, or Facebook at the Crochet Crowd. He has a lot of great tutorials. That's how I learned some of my basics of loom knitting before I started. But, so when you're ready for it to go on the loom, now because I'm only doing the front, make sure, well actually that's the back, but if I was just doing the front, I'll just show you, even though this is probably not what design I'm going to do. Alright, gotta fix my yarn here because I've got a lot of excess yarn, which makes it a little hard to work with sometimes with the beads because you're constantly pulling yarn out because you need it before you're ready to put the beads on, so it can get kind of tangled. But then all I'm going to do, see, I'll bring up a few. And of course I'm usually sitting down and not trying to do a video. But you'll bring them closer to the end here. And then all you're going to do when you're ready to put them on if it will cooperate here, is you bring them down. I don't know if you can see because they're light colored. And you're going to wrap your peg, oops, and then drop your bead so it's in between. So you're doing a wrap, drop, a wrap, and then drop. So see, that's what it's going to end up looking like. Is you're going to have a bead in between each peg, because you're going to wrap the peg, then drop the bead, wrap a peg, drop a bead, wrap a peg, drop a bead. That's why I like the triple stitch, is because it helps kind of lock the beads in place a little more. But go ahead and try different stitches. I haven't really tried any other ones to see if another one will work just as well. But that's all you're going to do, is you're going to just drop the peg in between. And then, let me get a little closer so you can see. And then, of course, this is a 3-stitch, so I'm going to take the bottom one over the top. But this isn't where I want my beads. But I promised a video, so I wanted to do one quickly. So that's all you're going to do, is just figure out how many beads you need to put on it, put them on before you begin your loom knitting, cast down like normal, figure out how many, what kind of stitch pattern you want to do. You don't necessarily have to do what I do. And like I said, this was starting out, and I only used one strand. That's why I do the 1/3, because I like using one strand, and this way I don't have to have 2 strands of yarn. And even in the front, like I said, this is a little looser, and I wanted it that way when I was doing my garter stitch, so that's a little looser. But then when you come up here, like you can kind of see my hand through here, but you can't up here. That's what I like about the 1/2 stitch, because I don't always want to use 2 strands, especially if you just want to mix it up, or you don't want to deal with 2 strands at once. Especially when you're adding beads, it's easier to me just to have them on 1 strand, and not have to work from both sides of a skein of yarn at the same time. This way, the 1/2 stitch creates that tight enough of a stitch that works pretty well. And I didn't want this bag to be as bulky as other ones I've done that I have used 2 strands for. Now when this bag is all done, I'll cast it off here. Then I'll use another loom, a little small loom that I have another video on that I use to make jewelry sometimes. And I'll use the smaller side of that, and I'll make a handle. And then I'll attach the handle on the inner part so I can hear when I'm all done, once I decide which way I want the bag to go. But that's all I do for adding beads. It's not that hard. Like I said, and this container from Walmart was 1,500 pony beads, and I paid like $5 for it. And they have, this is a multicolored one. They sell them probably at any craft store. You don't have to go to Walmart. But at my particular Walmart, they have a couple different containers like these, some that are a little more clear but colored, some that are just like, we'll say red or just black, glow in the dark, which I've used before. So that's what I like about them, and I think they're good for like any projects that you might want to give to kids. But go ahead and try other beads. As long as the hole is big enough to put on the yarn, then you're pretty set. I mean, I have other beads that I want to try the same technique with, but for now this is what I'm doing. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I didn't talk too fast. But like I said, it's very simple. Just, thread a needle with some yarn, and then put all the pony beads on. Figure out your pattern if you want one. I really didn't have a pattern. I just kind of made sure I had one of each color every time I put it on here. I'd put one of each color, then drop it down. One of each color, drop it down. And that was a loose pattern, I called it. But I'm really excited to see how this bag looks when it's done. But I want to do a video to show people how to actually do it, because it's a very simple concept. To see other bags I've done, you can check out my website, www.simplyintertwined.webs.com, and I'll put a link to that at the bottom of this video, or someplace. I'll put a link to it, and you'll be able to see other products I've done. I mean, this is a cool technique to use on hats, especially kids' hats. I made one for a local craft show, and I had a lot of compliments on seeing the pony beads around, because I just add something different. And the good thing with pony beads is they're smooth. They won't really hurt any kid's head or anything like that, because that's something you want to look out for, is using any kind of bead that could potentially hurt somebody because it has a rough edge or something. And these don't. And they even have ones that are called mini pony beads that I want to pick up that aren't as big around, like they're not as thick. So I want to try some of those and see how they work. But just, keep looming out there. I love loom knitting. I got into it in February. A friend of mine likes to knit. I call it the normal way. But I picked up some looms, and I've been going crazy since February. I've made pretty close to, I would say, over 50 to 60, maybe even 70 projects. I just, hats. I've done hats, scarves, baby blankets, bags, I've got a couple other things I want to work on. Fingerless gloves, so if anyone knows how to do them on a loom, I would love to see a video, because I don't know much about putting like holes into the looms, stitch marking or stitch holding or whatever it's called. So if anyone knows anything about that, I would love to see videos about that process. It's great to just be able to share ideas on YouTube for loom knitting, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I hope, feel free to comment or subscribe to my channel on YouTube. I would love to have more followers, and I will be thinking of what my next video will be. So if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see, if I'm able to do it, just go ahead and leave comments below, and I will do my best. Bye. Have a good night, everyone.